Welcome to My Turn Life Coaching with me, Rikki Schwartz. If you're like most people, you've spent your entire life focusing on the demands of parenting, of relationships, of your livelihood. Much like you've been riding in a life-powered bobsled, leaning into what others expect of you. But I'm here to help you reclaim your life. I want to embolden you to raise your hand today and every day and say, "It's my turn." I'm Rikki Schwartz, and welcome to It's My Turn Life Coaching, Reclaim Your Life with me, Rikki Schwartz. Stay with us for the next hour, and let's see if we can begin to get the seeds of reclaiming your life to take root so you can say, "It's my turn." On today's show, I am honored and excited to have Mr. Tom Lillig as my guest. Tom is a best-selling author, a business and nonprofit executive, a speaker, and a gifted storyteller that connects at the heart level. As the board president of No Barriers USA, Tom has helped oversee its growth as a leading organization for unleashing human potential, which is what we're going to talk about today. Tom also runs the Chicago office of Stone Ward, which is an advertising and marketing agency dedicated to building good. And we'll talk a little bit about how that works. In this interview, he's going to share key insights of his No Barriers framework, as described in his recent book called What's Within You, of which he's giving away 3 copies to listeners. More about that later. He will be sharing in this interview step by step how to break through your own challenges and live a driven, purposeful, and limitless life. Tom, welcome to My Turn Life Coaching. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and I'm so excited to be with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. So as always, in an effort to kind of fast track a connection between all of my guests and the listeners, I begin every interview with the same question. What are your personal core values, and in particular, the ones that align with our interview today? Now, of course, that's a natural question for you, I'm sure, but what are those core values?
Yeah, it's such a great question. Thanks for asking. For me, I have 4 core values that I always come back to. The first is the foundation of everything, and that's trust. So trust is one of my core values. The next one is courage. We always need to be courageous as we step outside our comfort zone and tackle some new challenges that help us grow. And then third is, something that I call connection, or at No Barriers, we call rope team. It's the whole idea of being connected to one another and using that to propel us forward. We can't make it alone. We need that connection. And then fourth, and the one that we'll probably be coming back to quite a bit today, is really at the cornerstone of all the work that I do at No Barriers. But really, I think it's something that all of us practice every day. We certainly all did during 2020, right? And that final one is something I called alchemy. Alchemy, the idea of, we're all sort of facing challenge, but there's a way that we can respond to that challenge and move forward in our lives.
So very timely indeed. I wonder if the interview would have been 180 degrees were it 1919 right now. 1919. Yeah, probably if it were 1919, for sure
Right.
It would.
Right.
If it were 2019 right now. So I guess this does have a very timely element to it, I suspect. So thank you again.
Absolutely.
So how did the No Barriers organization come to be, and who do you serve?
Sure. Great question. Well, first off, No Barriers is a nonprofit organization, and we serve people of all different backgrounds and all different abilities. So anyone from wounded veterans who are trying to reclaim their lives, to business leaders that are trying to maximize their fullest potential, or kids who are just trying to find their way in the world. Really our mission is to unleash the potential of the human spirit. And the way that we try to do that is meet at the intersection of those 2 fundamental questions that we all ask ourselves. What is my purpose? And how do I get through these barriers in my way? We all face them. And we operate at that intersection and really try to let people know that, hey, we're all going to face barriers. But if we have a purpose that's worth living for, a purpose that drives us forward, that we can navigate through any challenge in our way. And so that's where No Barriers lives and operates, through through our experiences, our tools, and our inspirational stories, we try to bring that experience to everyone. And the story of the origin of No Barriers it's actually a fascinating one. It starts 20 years ago on the top of Mount Everest. And it's not me. I'm not up there. That is one thing. I said I'm courageous. That is one thing I don't think I have the courage to take on. But on the top of Mount Everest 20 years ago, history was made. And our friend, our co-founder, our leader, Eric Weinmeier, the first blind person to summit Mount Everest, stood on top of the world 20 years ago. But it's not so much what happened on top. On his way back down the mountain, his guide said to him, and Eric has been blind since he was a child, and he struggled mightily throughout his life, and he found his passion and calling in climbing. But after he'd achieved this feat that no one thought possible, he's on the way back down the mountain, and his guide says to him, "Don't let Everest be the greatest thing you ever do." Don't let Everest.
Goosebumps.
I know, right? So you've just stood on top of the world, and your guide says, "Don't let this be the greatest thing you ever do." And Eric thought about that. What am I going to do? What could top this?
Literally top this.
Right. Well, there's no heights higher, but is there something else? And what Eric realized is a lesson I think all of us can take with us and impart on others. And that is that, in order to ultimately find a purpose that's worth living for, it needs to be one that elevates others. And so for Eric, finding that purpose was really creating this amazing organization that has benefited tens of thousands of people all across the world. So that is the origin. Yeah.
So you know what? I'm going to back up a little bit because you used the word passion and purpose a lot. And I have two arenas where I use those two words a great deal too. My Turn Life Coaching, of course, I'm a personal coach and a career coach. And then I'm also president of the Center for Agile Leadership, where we do training on leadership. And in both situations, I talk to people a lot about passion and purpose. And I can tell you that about half, if not more, say, I have no idea. I've never really thought about my passion, my purpose. I've always done what was expected of me. That's why I call the life coaching brand It's My Turn. So where I usually have them start, and tell me if this makes sense to you, where you and I started just a few minutes ago, which is, all right, let's back up to your personal core values. Let's find what those are. I can help you through them if you need to, but usually I ask them to picture the best day they ever had. I do whatever I can do to get them to their core values. The next step, I tell them to make a core value statement. So put that, this passions this fuels this, so forth. And then slowly but surely, we're able to curate down to passion and purpose. Is that kind of the avenue you recommend people take as well? Or do you have a different approach?
Well, what you just articulated there is something that is, it seems to me that's so formulaic, and that makes perfect sense to me. We do lots of exercises of a similar sort, but oftentimes we're doing our exercises through outdoor experiences, right? So we'll be on the mountain and we'll talk about what it is that they live for, what it is that's going to propel them to move forward. Why are they here? Why are they doing this adventure?
That's good.
And then we challenge them to write down what their vision statement is. Vision is the term that we use. It's a little play on words with Eric and not having vision, but yeah. And so I think that what you're doing is great. And that makes so much sense to me. And really what we're trying to sort of get to is, what is at the heart of these people? What is it that ultimately they are living for, that would ultimately drive them forward? I think it was Nietzsche that said something like, he who has a why can get through any how, right?
Starts with why. Always starts with why. Amen.
Right.
Simon Sinek, that's why he's a billionaire. Starts with why.
Right. That's right.
Yes.
It starts with why.
So you also touched on something else that I do in my leadership courses. Some of them is we get through the core values, and these now we ask them to do core values as they relate to the work environment. Sometimes they're different, sometimes they're not. We ask them to do the core values. We ask them to come up with their person and their passion. And then we ask them to get with their teams or their organizations or their family or whatever it is, and come up with a purpose statement, a mission statement, and a vision statement, which people confuse all the time. So I walk them through it. So again, it sounds like we're coming at it from the same way. People need to dig a little to figure out what is lighting their fire, and will continue to do so. So I love your approach. I love how it kind of aligns with what I'm doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that we see is that it's really hard work. I mean, like getting to that vision
Yes.
statement, or for us, it's like all about getting to that vision statement. Getting to that can take so much time. And so what we try to do is not have people get hung up
Yep.
on, the words. We want to just let them know, hey, this is what we have to do. Let's acknowledge that this
That's
is a
good.
key step. But in the process, let's start acknowledging all those other things that are around us
Yeah.
uh, that we can be grateful for in our journey.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, I think that's a great place to take a break. So we're going to take our first break. Guys, you're listening to My Turn Life Coaching, Reclaim Your Life with me, Rikki Schwartz. After the break, we're going to come back, dive into what inspired Tom to write his recent book, What's Within You, and what it hopes to accomplish. Back in 3 minutes. And we're back. You're listening to My Turn Life Coaching, Reclaim Your Life with me, Rikki Schwartz. My guest today is Tom Lillig, best-selling author, business and nonprofit executive, and speaker. Before we jump back in, I want to remind any of our Facebook Live guests, we welcome any questions or comments you have for me or Tom. Just pop those into the comments field. Our producer will relay them to me, or you can call the studio at 800-930-2819. I think you'll probably see that number pop up, 800-930-2819. Also call that number if you would like to request a free copy. We're giving away 3 of Tom's new book, What's Within You. And finally, I want to make sure, Tom, everybody knows how to contact you when the interview's over. Give us your best contact information.
Yeah, that'd be great. My best contact information is tom.lillig, that's Lillig, at nobarriersusa.org.
Lovely. Say it one more time.
tom.lillig at nobarriersusa.org.
Perfect. So to continue, what inspired you, Tom, to write your book, What's Within You? And even more importantly, what do you hope it accomplishes?
Oh, such a good question. So in the past, almost 20 years, we've had the organization. I've served as board president. And during that time, we've had the opportunity to serve tens of thousands of participants. And oftentimes we have these experiences, this No Barrier Summit, which, by the way, there's one happening this weekend, which you can attend virtually or in person in Colorado for any
Well, stop
Colorado
and give
listeners
information
out there.
about that right now. Stop right now and tell us about that. How do we get to it? So
Absolutely. It's very simple. Nobarriers.live. Go to nobarriers.live and you can register today. It can be a free registration for the entire virtual experience. Or if you happen to live in Colorado, come join us in Keystone. We've got an amazing experience out there. So I'll be departing on Friday, and it'll be just a wonderful experience, as we always have. So
wonderful.
we plan these amazing experiences where we try to teach what we call the 7 elements of a No Barriers life to people. We've got inspiring speakers and performers that come out, and we create a community where people are accepted for who they are, and they recognize that we're all struggling in some form or fashion, but we're struggling together. We're struggling together and becoming stronger because of it. And we have each other. We have our rope team to count on to help us through the journey. So I love these experiences that we have, but in a way, that's the reason why we wrote the book, because we know that not everyone can come to our experiences, that it's only several, hundred a year, or several, tens of thousands over the course of 17 years, but there's still millions of people, both in the US and internationally, that probably could benefit from some of the lessons and the learnings and the philosophy and the stories that we have. So as sort of a parting gift to the organization, as I'm departing as the board president, I wanted to make sure, with my co-author and I wanted to make sure that we could have this clarified version of the No Barriers philosophy and a way to ensure that people would have access to it from all over the globe. So there's an ebook that you can get for 99 cents right now. It's a special time offer. And then you can obviously get the book at any time.
Do they get the ebook at your website as well, No Barriers USA?
You can get it from Amazon.
Okay, Amazon, got it.
Yeah, the website will have links to Amazon.
Perfect. And then again, it's called What's Within You, right, Tom?
That's correct. The name of the book is What's Within You: Your Roadmap to Living Life with No Barriers. And you asked about one of my hoping to achieve out of the book, our philosophy is to unleash the potential of the human spirit, but there is a tagline, there is a motto that we have at No Barriers, and that motto is, what's within you is stronger than what's in your way. And if there's one wish that I have for the book, it's on the dedication page. And in addition to saying that the book is dedicated to my mother, it also says that the book is dedicated to people that don't yet believe that what's within them is stronger than what's in their way. And hopefully through learning the philosophy of No Barriers and becoming part of our community, people will soon believe that. People will believe that whatever obstacles they face, they and what's within them will be able to overcome or harness that adversity and turn it into something positive for them.
So tell me what to expect in the book. Give a little bit of snapshots of what they can find when they crack the binder.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the book is one part how-to and one part inspiring story. So what we've done is we've woven together the 7 elements of a No Barriers life that all starts with vision, that it all starts with sort of defining what one's personal vision is, and then weaves into the stories of some of the exemplars. So I mentioned Eric Weinmeier, co-founder, the first person to summit Everest. So his story, the story of Mandy Harvey that came to our organization as someone that was kicked out of college because she went to school for studying music education, and she became profoundly deaf during her freshman year. And so she was kicked out of school because she couldn't perform the most basic things in music, but then found her way to be on America's Got Talent as a singer-songwriter and earned Simon Cowell's Golden Buzzer. So it shares the stories of these amazing people that have realized what's within them is stronger.
Wow. Again with the goosebumps. Stop with the goosebumps. Too much.
Well, hopefully the book gives everyone goosebumps, and it's certainly,
so
for me, it's more than that, more than just sharing these great stories. I really do hope that this idea of hopefulness in the face of adversity is one that can last, can stick with people a long time.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So there's the how-tos, there's the inspirational stories. What else? Anything else you didn't cover that they can look forward to in the book?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, when I think about the book, I often say to myself, I don't take credit for coming up with any of the concepts in the book. The book is based on some of the wisdom that's been with us through the ancient times. And what we have done is just found an organizing philosophy for helping people not just embrace and learn this knowledge and this philosophy, but be able to access it and put it into action for themselves. So, in addition to the inspiring stories of our No Barriers exemplars, in addition to our framework of the No Barriers life, we also weave in some of the wisdom that's been passed on through generations, including, one of my, the person I consider to be like the OG of the No Barriers philosophy, the ancient Greek philosopher Epictetus, and all of his notions around, hey, we all face barriers, but what matters most is how we approach them, what our attitude is when we encounter them.
So let me ask you this from your experience, and I don't expect any hard data, just your general impression. Do you think that the obstacles that we assume are too large to pursue something are self-imposed or imposed by others, more one or the other?
Well, that's a great question. I think that oftentimes when we encounter a barrier, we don't have the ability to take a step back. We don't have that sort of perspective, right? So we encounter a barrier and it seems like, this is the end of days. This is the worst possible thing that could happen. Without looking at our lifetime of wisdom and experience, without looking at the friends and wise supporters that we have available to us, without looking at how this experience could actually, in some strange way, turn out to be a benefit in the long view of our lives. So I think a lot of it is the weight that we put on them, especially in that moment. And I think that, one of the No Barriers life elements is something that we call summits. And it's all about when we get to a point in our lives, we often don't take the time to stop and reflect with gratitude on the journey, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. I was downsized from a company about in 2018 that I'd been with for 16 or so years, and I expected to retire from that company. So I remember thinking, there is nothing else. There's nothing else I can do, would do, should do, will do. And I probably had that idea in my head for maybe a week or so, where I was just kind of in the fetal position for a while and thinking, well, I guess it's early retirement for me because there's nothing on the horizon at all. And I did have a really good friend who said, you didn't get where you were by mistake. Why do you think that none of that came from you? And that's kind of what helped dig me out. So I think that's what you're saying. Look at where you got to where you are by what you've done and what you're capable of, and don't dismiss it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you didn't get to where you are by mistake. There, I mean,
Yeah.
there's something profound in that.
Yep.
And, I appreciate you sharing that story because, like, oftentimes, the book is full of stories of people that have achieved, people that have stood on tops of mountains, that have earned that golden buzzer. But, I think that at No Barriers, we spend just as much time talking about the tremendous struggles that we face, about like being in the muck of it, and I think that right, and it's kind of like a dirty word in sort of the personal development space to like talk about the struggle, but it's okay. I mean, we're all at some point in the struggle, and to be able to talk about it is the first step in being able to know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
once you don't feel so alone, the stigma and the shame and the guilt and the uncomfortable feelings all kind of fade away. And then you start to
Yeah.
realize there are people that want to help you and move you forward,
Yeah.
just like your friend.
I think the shame was probably the biggest factor. In fact, I didn't tell a lot of my friends and family that it had happened for at least that week.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to explain it. I was so ashamed, even though the senior leadership team was very gracious when I was downsized and made it clear that it wasn't anything I had done. And they gave me an amazing severance package, and they gave me an outsourcing package. I was just fail, 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 fail. That's all I could hear. And so, yeah, when she said that to me, it was amazing I even told her about it, let alone she came up with such a profound response. So I think the key to what you're saying is, if you hide yourself in the shame, you don't have any resources. You just have to literally trust that nobody's going to judge you, quite the contrary.
Absolutely. Such a
Yeah.
huge point. And that's one of the great things that I love about not just this show, but other forums where and like the No Barrier Summit, where we can come and bring our full selves to the table and bring our full struggle to the table, knowing that we'll be not only embraced with love, but also oftentimes given the guidance, the support, and the inspiration to find a way through it to the next side.
Yeah. There's I wish I could think of his name. If I Google it when I come back, I'll look. He's a very, very famous barbecue chef. So he's known for his fired cooking, if you will. And ironically and tragically, not that long ago, he came up upon a dead bear and what he thought was a bucket next to the bear. And he thought, it'd be great if I could take a claw as a souvenir. So he touched the bucket, and it turns out that the bear and the bucket were on a live wire. So he was very badly electrocuted. And in the end, he lost his arm. He had burns and severe injuries along one side of his body. And there's a documentary on him, which of course I can't think of the name of. And that's another place where you think, well, how's he going to cook? He doesn't have one arm, right? How's he going to work a grill and cut vegetables? And you should see him go, man. So another example of, why would you shortchange yourself at that point?
I have goosebumps because I know the person you're talking to. In
Good.
fact, he was at our No Barrier Summit 2
No
years
way.
ago. Yeah, he's a
You
part of
remember
our
his
No
name?
Barrier community. I believe it's Eduardo Garcia. Is that
It's definitely, yes, that's it.
Okay, I believe that's it. Hopefully we did you justice.
I think so too, because I just saw him on Chopped, which made me look him up and look up the documentary. I love Chopped. And there he was, just as stunning and vibrant as possible. And when I watched the documentary and read his history, I'm like, holy smokes, holy smokes.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a great story. And yes, I know him well, and we had had him part of our No Barriers community. So yeah.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. He belongs there. I'm so glad to hear that. All right, let's take our second break, shall we? You're listening to
Absolutely.
My Turn Life Coaching, Reclaim Your Life with me, Rikki Schwartz. When we come back, we're going to discuss with Tom those lessons from the book that he thinks are especially relevant now. Now, we've already touched on a couple. Let's see if there's any more. See you in 3. And we're back. In case you're just tuning in, this is My Turn Life Coaching, Reclaim Your Life with me, Rikki Schwartz. And today we're talking to Tom Lillig, best-selling author, business and nonprofit executive, and speaker. So Tom, are there any lessons from your book, What's Within You, that might be especially relevant right now? Now, we've touched on it a few times, but talk about the relevance right now.
Yeah, if there's one element that I see show up, not just within my No Barriers community, but also in my work environment, both with my clients as well as my agency team, it's this idea of alchemy and the need for alchemy. You know, when we at No Barriers define alchemy as that opportunity to turn challenge into opportunity, that ability to turn challenge into opportunity and use it as this opportunity to grow and benefit from. And when I think about that concept of alchemy, you know, the word comes from the Middle Ages when, you know, the alchemists tried to turn lead into gold and the whole process of transmutation of metals. Well, that didn't work. But what we did when we were writing the book is we studied how all of these different cultures tried to put words to this concept of taking something that is broken and turning it into something that is full of promise. And, you know, the Japanese have this great word called kintsugi. Have you heard of kintsugi?
Yes. I was just going to bring that up. Yes.
That's that notion of when a piece of pottery is broken, instead of, you know, hiding all of the brokenness, they use gold to bond it together.
Yes.
And, you know, the whole idea that our scars can be made gold is such, and honored in that way, is such a powerful concept, and one that I think is so important now. You know, we talked a little bit about the shame that we feel when we have our brokenness or when we have our moments of humiliation. And no one should feel that. Instead, it should be an opportunity for us to turn the page and find anew and let those scars be not just put on the side, but put on display in gold.
I had a friend who had heart surgery. So she had a very prominent scar right here down the front. And when she was picking out her wedding dress, the question was from the consultant, do you want to hide the scar? And she said, hell no, I earned this scar. I want everybody to see that I have overcome the scar. This is for gold, right? So I love that.
I love that. You know, the reason why this element means so much to me is because it, in many ways, it kind of defines my own No Barriers life story. When I was a child, I had this speech impediment and I could not pronounce the letter R, or nor any word with an R in it. And that plagued me. I mean, a lot of little kids have that, but that plagued me like well into middle school. And when you're in middle school and you really can't say a sentence without like it coming that people just aren't understanding and some people are laughing, it kind of changes you as a human being.
Yes, it does.
And so while I worked hard and found a way working with a brilliant speech therapist, the late Deborah Bork, what I took away from that experience was this idea that this struggle made me a stronger person. This struggle could drive me forward and made me more empathetic to people who do have struggles in their lives, and made me want to help them find their path forward, and made me want to be the person that tells their stories, just as I navigated my own life story. So that's kind of how I became wired to be so fascinated by stories of people overcoming things. And that's really what led me into my passion for the work that I do.
At my church, we call that make your misery your ministry.
And I love that.
What you've done. I know, I love it too. And I think every single person on the planet has experienced some kind of misery and it changed them. We're hopeful that it changes you and that you learn to be more empathic and you learn to make it your own mission to help other people in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes it goes the other direction, and that is understandable as well. But I love that we have so many examples where it went this way, that I hope it inspires people that have used it for bitterness and resentment and kind of closing themselves off. I think if we keep showing them examples, Tom, we can help them.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's that's in a large part, that's what the book is meant to do, is share some stories and hopefully be that thing that pays it forward and allows other people to learn and grow from that.
Perfect. I love that. I'm gonna remind people. Get back up to the studio number. If you're interested in one of the 3 free copies of Tom's book, which I encourage you to be, call the studio at 800-930-2819 and request a copy. If you're not listening to the show live and you're listening to the podcast, I think you can still call the studio and get the book. Or Tom, remind them how they can get a copy of the book if they just say, I was listening to the podcast. How can they get a free copy from you directly?
That's right. What you can do is email me at tom.lillig@nobarriersusa.org.
Fabulous. Well, I think we're going to take our last break. That's what I think. And you're listening to My Turn Life Coaching, Reclaim Your Life with me, Rikki Schwartz. When we come back, we're going to talk to Tom about his Chicago ad agency, which I'm forgetting, Stone Ward.
That's
because
right.
What he said was, it's an agency used for doing good. And maybe in large part due to Mad Men, we don't think about advertising agencies as doing good. So I'm very anxious to hear how you've kind of turned that around a little bit. So that'll be in our last segment. See everybody in 3 minutes. Welcome back. You are listening to My Turn Life Coaching, Reclaim Your Life with me, Rikki Schwartz. And today we have Tom Lillig here talking about living a no barriers life. So before the break, Tom, I mentioned that you run the Chicago office of an advertising and marketing agency called Stone Ward. And what you put in your bio for me is that you use that for good. And as I said before the break, if anybody's watched Mad Men, as most of us have, we don't always think about advertising and marketing agencies as doing for good. We usually think about it as being very cutthroat, very monetarily oriented. So talk to us about Stone Ward and how you've managed to make it a little something different.
That's right. Yeah. Well, thanks for asking the question. Because there's this whole part of my life that's focused on no barriers. And then there's a whole other part of my life that's my family. And then there's that part of my life that's my work. And my work, my day in, day out is I run the Chicago office of Stone Ward, an agency dedicated to building good. And the reason why that's so important to me is, like everything in my life, it needs to resonate at the heart center. It needs to be something that really inspires me to go into the office every day, know that I'm working toward that vision each and every day. And I hold myself to making sure that I live in sync with that vision each and every day. And for me, I want to work at a place that has these values. And for me, when I say building good, at the foundational level, goes back to my first pillar. Building good is about building trust between a client and agency, trust between a team with each other, trust between, our clients and their customers. So building that trust, not being deceitful, always sort of at the first step of every type of relationship is that foundation of trust that needs to be there. So that's a key part. Another part is just striving for excellence every day and like holding the bar to each other to be the very highest, so that we're always pushing ourselves outside the comfort zone and always maintaining that high bar. The third part to me is always make sure that we're maximizing the potential of our ideas, of our clients, of our people. And then the fourth part is just making sure that whatever we do, in some way, it's creating a positive impact on our communities, our country, or the world as a whole. And so I hold myself to those values each and every day for every client that I work on. And it feels good. I feel energized. And I think the rest of the team that works with us feels energized because they know that there is a North Star that is guiding their work. And it's so important to me to work at a place that really sort of puts that out there. I mean, it's on every business card, on every email signature. We are a creative force for good. We live it and we love it.
I love that you called it the Northern Star, a Northern Star, because again, when I'm doing my career coaching or when I'm doing my leadership training, a lot of times people are at a crossroads in terms of whether they're at the right job, whether they need to retire, whether they need to quit that job, whether they need to change positions within the same company. And they don't have that North Star. So it takes me back to what we talked about at the beginning. And it sounds like you've done just this. Whether you did it intentionally is not necessarily the point. But I tell people, go back to your core values. Does your position, whatever it is, housewife, janitor, banker, art person, painter, whatever it is, are you getting to use those core values? Do they align? So obviously yours are very oriented around integrity and doing good and making sure people are working to their best. And that's what this position allows you to do. And I think too often we just we fall into our jobs, and nobody's going to say that it hasn't happened to them. I don't know anybody it hasn't happened to at least once. And we stop paying attention to, does this align with what I believe in? All of the things you just mentioned, which sound like they're probably the core values of Stone Ward. That's what, when you hire people, you have to say, are these your core values?
That's
If
right.
not, you won't be happy here. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's in the hiring process, and it's also in our evaluations. So
Yes.
each and every year we measure ourselves by how much we are living out our building good character. So
EOS People Analyzer. Is that what you're using?
you know it. You know it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's we have clients of all different stripes. So you might say, like, tell me, Tom, how does working with a client like US soccer, how does that tie into building good? Well, it ties in not just, one, because I think it's a good thing that we grow a sport in this country, but it ties in because how we work with that client, how we go about building that trust, how we go about trying to maximize each idea, how we go about holding ourselves to that highest standard of excellence. So part of it is the work that you do, and part of it is how you go about carrying it out.
Yeah.
So oftentimes people say, well, shouldn't you be working solely with nonprofits that are making a big difference?
Mm-hmm.
And I say, well, it's important to work with them, but at the same time, it's important to work with clients that are trying to employ people, trying to do good things, trying to keep our economy moving forward. And ultimately, it's how you work with those clients. Are you building trust with them? Are you holding yourselves to the highest standard of excellence? So to me, those are some of the key questions that come up all the time.
Perfect.
And for what I say is, I go to bed every night knowing that I lived out my core values. I go to bed every night feeling in sync with what my company's values are. And that's something that I cherish.
Perfect. So for those who don't know, I'm going to expand on a little bit and talk about the EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System People Analyzer, because to me, it is head and shoulders above annual performance reviews, which we're not too huge a fan on. But what the People Analyzer does is it lines up the organization's key core values at the top of the matrix. And then the employee goes along the left side, the y-axis of the matrix. And then in a discussion, you say, how you doing on this one? You think you got a 5, you think you're doing a plus minus, you could do plus, which you're doing it all the time. Minus, you're never living it, feeling it. Plus minus, it's only sometime. When you get all the way done and you notice you have a lot of ones, or you have a lot of minuses or a lot of plus minuses, now we realize we're not talking about performance at all. We're literally talking about fit. So these performance improvement plans, which can be an incredible waste of time for everybody, hardly ever work because they're looking at the wrong thing. If one of your core values is extreme customer service, and that's not a core value of the employee because they'd rather put family balance and other things first, then they're not a good fit for the position, but they'd be great at some other position. So I'm glad you touched on that, because I really want people to be thinking about fit with what they're doing, even if it's a marriage or family or a friend. Are you fitting, aligning with your husband, friend, colleague, job, or are you trying to pretend because that's what you've always done?
That's a great point. Yeah. So much of us, of what I have found, is making sure that the people that we bring on board are the right fit. Not only are they, capable at doing the task that we're asking them to do, but they're a good fit for ultimately what we value and what they value.
I think it's amazing that that has not been the approach as early as, I don't know about your company, but I would say I never even heard about using fit or culture as one of the hiring criteria and as one of the celebrating separation criteria. I think we didn't start talking about fit till fairly recently. And I think it turns everything on its ear.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I was so drawn to you and your book and so forth, because I think that if we don't fit, but we're spending every day pretending we do, we've created a barrier. We've created a huge barrier because we just don't want to look at it and make a painful decision or a painful change, because we've said, this is what I've always done. I'm not going to look at fit. I do okay at my job. I'm relatively happy in my marriage. But are you creating a barrier just by saying, yeah, I fit fine? And you don't.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that that's something that I think for a lot of people, they go under the impression, they either are, there's this idea of, are they just camping out? Or
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
are they really climbing to the summit? Are they really sort of getting to where ultimately they can be on that higher ground and be in flow? So, to me, it's a big question of like asking yourself those courageous, hard questions, and finding out, is this truly a fit that energizes you?
Because I think what we've talked about so far are very dramatic examples of being in a desperate situation or huge trauma or huge loss and overcoming that to get to a more successful, happier, joyful place. But I don't want to discount the people who are just sitting in the camping out place. They're just sitting in the I'm fine, I'm okay. There's nothing dramatically horrible about their life. They haven't lost any limbs, they're not blind and so forth. But they're just like, yeah, this is fine. This is fine. And in some ways, it reminds me of, quiet desperation. In some ways, that's worse because you've literally created a barrier for yourself without even admitting to having done it. And you're going to sit there until you make the very real decision to go, wow, all this time I've been limiting myself and I didn't even know I was doing it.
Yeah, yeah. And, it's a good point because a lot of times you'll be in that safe zone, that comfort zone.
Yeah.
And being in the comfort zone, it sounds comfortable. It sounds good.
Comfort.
Right. It's comfortable. But at the same time, there's no growth. There's no passion. There's no being able to truly be in flow and living out your own heaven on earth.
Yeah.
And so that's the danger really of just being in that comfort zone, that safe space. And so we always are, at No Barriers, we have got this concept called reach. We're always trying to have people set their goals and reach beyond them, even though we know that that is outside their comfort zone.
Good, good. So before we close out, Tom, share again your contact information and share again the information about the event coming up.
Yes, absolutely. So this weekend, on the 28th through 30th, we have the No Barriers Summit. It's going to be a free virtual event. Go to nobarriers.live right now, and you can register for free for the virtual event. Or if you happen to be in Colorado, come out to Keystone and join our community and see some amazing performers and some inspiring speakers.
Oh, I wish I could be there.
Yeah, you won't regret it.
I love Keystone. I love Keystone.
It's gorgeous. Yes. Yeah. And then always you can email me at tom.lillig@nobarriersusa.org. One of the great things that's happened is after we wrote the book, we got a note from a teacher in India that's teaching at a leadership academy. And as we all know, India has been devastated by COVID-19, and many of these students were away from their families, quarantined for months and months and months. Yes. While their families were dying and very, very sick. And the teacher said, what, I read your book and our students need your book right now. So myself and my co-author, David Cherna, who's the executive director, we gave a lecture to them. And out of all of the talks that we've done over the past year, that was by far the most powerful. By the questions that we got, we could tell that this was something that was needed. And
I have a lot of friends who are nurses and doctors, and their struggle is almost unspeakable. Yeah. So I think they would benefit from it as well. Just some kind of North Star, because they're so in the dark right now, and they thought they were out of the dark, and now they're back in the dark with the Delta variant. So thank you so much. Again, listeners, if you want a free copy of the book, call the studio 800-930-8888. 2819. Tom, it has been remarkable talking to you. Seriously. I knew it would be a great interview because I love the concept, but thank you so much again.
Oh, Rikki, thank you. It's been an honor to be talking with you, and I learned so much just in this past half hour with you.
Oh, good. So thank you, listeners, for supporting my radio show for the past many, many months. I'm sad to announce this will be my last show, at least for the time being. Hosting this show has been a thrill from day one. I mean that sincerely. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have done everything in this format to help you guys reclaim your life. So don't let it be lost. Reclaim your lives. Say it's my turn. And to that end, if you'd like to find out more about my personal and professional life coaching services and how they are designed to help you reclaim your life, please go to myturnlifecoaching.com. There you can also go to the podcast tab to find recordings of this and all of my Transformation Talk radio shows over the past few months. Last but not least, special thanks to my amazing producer, Jacob Kappas, who always made this process so effortless for myself and my guests. You are priceless, Jacob. And last but not least, I'm going to close out this last interview, as I have every interview, with one of my favorite quotes related to life transformation. This quote is from Albert, I'm going to say Camus, C-A-M-U-S, French philosopher, author, and journalist. He states, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer." Take care and let me help you discover your invincible summers, everyone. Go to myturnlifecoaching.com and let's see what we can do. Thanks again. Thanks so much for tuning into My Turn Life Coaching with me, Rikki Schwartz. Now, before you go, ask yourself this question. At my memorial service, what do I want folks to say was my passion? What do I want them to say was my purpose? If you don't know, or you don't think they'll know, then it's time to say it out loud. It's my turn. Visit myturnlifecoaching.com today and let me help you reclaim your life.